Welcome to the Too Lazy to Read podcast. This is the latest version of what was attempted years ago as Ricochet Out Loud. 2 Leaders 2R is simply designed for those too busy to read. The content is stolen from the finest newsletter, better known as the Ricochet Daily Shot, written by Fred Cole, edited by John Gabriel. The 2 Leaders 2R is a creation by Ricochet member Curious John in an attempt to expand Ricochet. Curious John, believe the greatest posts of Ricochet as well as the Daily Shot could be converted into podcast form like the following. This recording is made with the use of 2 websites, from text-to-speech.com and tunes2tube.com. If this idea has any legs, it can be harnessed as another source of sponsorship and a revenue stream for Ricochet.com's audio network. Today's 2 Leaders 2R is read by Jenna. It was originally written for Thursday, June 6, 2017. Opening shot. Fortune is like glass, the brighter the glitter, the more easily broken. Publilius Syrus. The trouble of Trump travel tweets. Next week, arguments will be filed with the Supreme Court appealing the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling stopping President Trump's travel ban. The controversial majority opinion quoted the public comments of the president and his advisors, including tweets and interviews, talking about a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. And if you'll recall, this is the second, revised travel ban, enacted by the president after the first order, infamous for how poorly it was written and implemented, was halted by the courts. Well, the president did himself no favors Monday when he took to Twitter to say, the Justice Department should have stayed with the original travel ban, not the watered-down, politically correct version they submitted to SC. Even using the phrase travel ban causes complications, prompting Trump to also tweet, people, the lawyers and the courts can call it whatever they want, but I am calling it what we need and what it is, a travel ban. It's important to recall that both travel bans were supposed to be emergency temporary measures. The administration wanted 90 days to conduct a review and decide on new vetting procedures for foreign travelers. Well, it's been 90 days since the original order. They've figured it out by now, right? Not so much. According to Jeff Wall, the acting Solicitor General, when the Fourth Circuit struck down the second travel ban, administration officials put our pens down and have done nothing to review the vetting procedures for these countries. Big drama in Little Qatar. Yesterday, 7 Islamic countries, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, Bahrain, Yemen, Libya, and the Maldives, abruptly broke off diplomatic relations with Qatar. Saudi Arabia closed its border with the nation. The UAE and Egypt have booted Qatari diplomats. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain have booted Qatari visitors and residents and banned their own citizens from traveling there. However, Qataris can still travel to Saudi Arabia for the Hajj. Egypt Air, Etihad Airways, Emirates, and other airlines from those countries have cancelled flights to and from Doha, and their airspace had been closed to Qatar Airways. So what's going on here? These countries have accused Qatar of engaging in practices that strengthen terrorism. Specifically that they've supported extremist groups, that wealthy Qataris are giving donations to Islamist groups in Syria, including the Nusra Front, and Iranian-backed terrorist groups. Of course, it's pretty rich for the Saudi government, of all people, to accuse someone else of this stuff. Rex Tillerson has publicly urged these countries to settle their differences with dialogue. As well he should. You see, Qatar is home to Al Udeid Air Base. This massive airbase with a 12-foot runway serves, among other things, as the forward HQ of U.S. Central Command. It is also the logistics and basing hub for U.S. operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this inter-Arab spat puts the U.S. in a sticky spot. Shooting in Orlando. Yesterday morning in Orlando, 5 people were killed when a man, identified by police as one John Robert Newman, entered Fiamma, a company that makes awnings for RVs, and shot them to death with a handgun before shooting himself. Obviously, considering the recent events in the UK, and next week's anniversary of the attack at the Pulse nightclub, thoughts first turned to terrorism. Not so in this case. Newman was an employee who had been fired back in April. So it wasn't terrorism. Just an ordinary horrible mass shooting. Feeling hot, hot, hot. Do you enjoy the heat? Are you looking for someplace warm to catch some rays? Maybe suggest planet Kelt 9b? According to new research published this week in Nature, Kelt 9b is the hottest planet around. We mean that literally. The exoplanet is a gas giant locked in an orbit, so one side is always facing its sun. Scientists peg the daytime temperature at 7,700 degrees Fahrenheit. It's so hot that atoms can't even bind together to form molecules. It has some other interesting features too. Its orbit takes it around the poles of its sun, rather than the equator, and it's so close that it whips around in orbit every 36 hours. In fact, it's so close that the star blows out Kelt 9b's atmosphere like the tail of a comet. If that sounds weird, it's because it is. Kelt 9b is so weird that it took the scientists involved years to figure out that what they were seeing is real. But the planet is notable for more than just being weird. Scientists think that Kelt 9b is the tip of the iceberg, and there may be many more super hot gas giants like this out there. When jumping into a moving vehicle is a smart thing. Randy Tompkins was driving last Friday when he noticed a car in the wrong lane driving straight for him. The driver of the oncoming car was seizing. As if it were the scene from some low-energy action movie, Tompkins leapt through the passenger window of the other vehicle, which was going about 10 miles per hour. He put his fingers into the mouth of the driver to keep him from biting his tongue. A cop car was nearby, so there's actually dashboard video of the guy jumping through the window. The driver was taken to hospital as a precaution, and police are rightly praising Tompkins for his heroic act to help a complete stranger. That being said, shoving your finger in the mouth of someone having a seizure is a bad idea. Ditto for any kind of object. In the case of your fingers, you're asking to get them bitten off. A foreign object could cause someone to choke or break their teeth. So no spoons, wallets, leather, belts, or sticks. And contrary to urban legends, no, you can't swallow your tongue. Okay, so in an ordinary situation, one not involving a moving car, what should you do if someone's having a seizure? It's important to protect the person from injury. So you should guide them to the floor if possible, and make sure they can't hit their head or injure themselves on furniture or other objects. If they're already on the ground, try to position them on their side so any fluids can come out of their mouth. Just don't apply too much pressure when you're doing this, because you don't want to dislocate anything. For a seizure, you don't always need to call an ambulance. It's important to keep track of how long it lasts. Most seizures don't last longer than 90 seconds. If it lasts more than 5 minutes, call an ambulance. And you'll want to make a note of the length so you can tell paramedics how long it's been. You should also call if the person is pregnant, if the seizure happens after a head injury, or if they stop breathing for more than 30 seconds. In which case you should also start rescue breathing. Also, if someone has a fever, severe headache, or trouble walking, speaking, or thinking clearly after a seizure, you should also seek help. But we're not doctors, obviously. So please don't take our word for it. Ask a professional. And if you want more info on how to help, WebMD has lots of details. Same box. Meanwhile, at Ricochet. When it comes to dealing with terrorist attacks, officials recently told Londoners that they should run, hide, tell. Ricochet editor-in-chief John Gabriel discusses this strategy and how it compares to the resolve of past British generations. But should they be criticized for that? Ricochet editor Claire Berlinski offers her response to John's criticism of run, hide, tell, and discusses other reactions, helpful and unhelpful. To throw another response into the mix, Ricochet contributor Titus Tekra responds to Claire's post and views prudence through the lens of powerlessness. And speaking of responses, Ricochet member and Handsome Daily Shot author Fred Cole responds to comments made by Dennis Prager in his recent appearance on the Ricochet podcast. Be forewarned, however, that it lapses into, as one commenter put it, typical Fred Cole belligerence. New Ricochet podcasts. A new week means a new commentary podcast. Noah Rothman, Abe Greenwald, and John Podhoretz talk about the London attacks and how all the attention has shifted to the president's spat with the mayor of London. And the boys salute Israel on the golden anniversary of the Six-Day War. London is one of the top tourist destinations on the planet. How will the recent terror attacks affect travel? On the Daily Standard, Eric Felton talks with Rudy Max about the effects of terrorism on tourism. On a brand new events podcast, President Arthur Brooks talks to Senator Ben Sasse about his new book, The Vanishing American Adult, Our Coming-of-Age Crisis, and how to rebuild a culture of self-reliance. Forget movies. Let's talk about movie theaters. On the latest episode of The Substandard, the boys air their grievances about everything from screen masking to sticky floors. And whether it's walking over sticky floors or trying to avoid walking over punji sticks, hey, we do a lot of these. They can't all be winners. You're gonna be better off with a 3-martini lunch. Jim Garrity of National Review and Greg Corombos of Radio America cheer Theresa May's tough statement after the London Bridge attack and share their frustration over President Trump's latest Twitter tirade over his travel ban. Day in history. On this day in 1813, during the War of 1812, British forces beat the Americans at the Battle of Stony Creek. Just to clarify, that's Stony Creek with an E, in Ontario. Not the Stony Creek, without an E, in Queensland, or the one in Victoria, Connecticut, Indiana, Virginia, or New York. On this day in 1844, the Young Men's Christian Association was founded in London. We heard it's fun to stay there, but the dress code is rather eccentric. On this day in 1933, the first drive-in theater was opened in Camden, New Jersey, by Richard Hollingshead, a local chemical company magnate. So now you know who to blame for the conception of your great-uncle Wilbur. We heartily recommend. Last week, we, and everyone else on Earth, mentioned the 50th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper. What we did not mention, when we recommended it, was the new remix of the album, produced by Giles Martin, son of Beatles producer George Martin. Then we listened to the most recent episode of Mad Dogs and Englishmen, where Charlie Cook explains the whole thing inside and out, and we ended up purchasing it. Basically, Martin pulled all the tracks apart and put them back together using a mix of vintage and modern technology. It now sounds like something fit for 21st century ears, not something recorded in the same century as wax cylinders. This isn't the kind of thing you want to listen to on your phone speaker sitting in the parking lot of a strip mall after immediately downloading it. You want to sit in a chair with your eyes closed and listen through a pair of noise-canceling headphones. Which is precisely what we did. But since we're unsure of our own opinions, we asked the Blue Yeti, a Beatles aficionado who knows infinitely more about music than we do. And he was the only member of the Ricochet staff who got our obscure Pepper reference back on March 29. He said, "I agree with everything Charlie Cook said on the latest Mad Dogs podcast." So there you have it. Go listen to what Charlie said, then buy the album. You'll be glad you did. Upcoming Ricochet member meetup. Events. Las Vegas, July 21st. Reagan Library, Simi Valley, California, July 23rd. These events are for Ricochet members only, but if you're not a member, you should join now. Once again, the content was stolen from the Daily Shot without their permission. This podcast is not, at least not yet, a production of Ricochet.com. Let's see if 2 Liters 2R can win its way into whatever Rob Long has cooked up to rival NPR. Written by Fred Cole. Edited by John Gabriel. Become a Ricochet member. Copyright 2017 Ricochet, all rights reserved. The Daily Shot is written and distributed by Ricochet.com.